what key values underpin your philosophy on politics and maybe life. And
Digha 5363, thank you for the 50 gifted subs. Israel-Palestine section. Yeah, I want to hear their overall values first.
in the context of this left-right political spectrum. You want to go first?
Yeah. So I think that we have a huge country full of a lot of people, a lot of individual talents,
Just want to say they're both liberal and also both conservative.
capabilities. And I think that the goal of government, broadly speaking, should be to try to ensure that everybody's able to achieve as much.
Why cover this if you're not willing to go on Lex Fridman yourself? I am willing to go on Lex Fridman. I just don't have I haven't had time. That's it. I don't know why people are so contentious. Like, I already said I would do it.
As possible. So on a liberal level, that usually means some people might need a little bit of a boost when it comes to things like education. They might need a little bit of a boost when it comes to providing certain necessities like housing or food or clothing. But broadly speaking, I mean, I'm still a liberal, not a communist or a socialist. I don't believe in the, total command economy, total communist takeover of all of the, economy. But I think that broadly speaking, the government should kind of like kick in and help people when they need it.
I puked in my mouth of the most skilled political debaters, and who the fuck on the left claims him? No, he is a skilled debater. They both are skilled debaters. Come on, guys. It doesn't matter. Being a skilled debater doesn't mean that you have good ideas or you are correct. Obviously, Ben Shapiro is a skilled debater, and I would not say that his ideas are good nor correct at all. They're good at debating. Debating is just about knowing the right talking points that you can deploy. It doesn't mean that you are being truthful or honest. In many instances, as a matter of fact, I would say that he's a skilled debater, specifically because on issues that he's completely outside of his range, Destiny and Ben Shapiro both have very quick ways of deflecting the conversation and reorienting it to an area that they are more comfortable in. That is what a good debater is. A good debater is basically, it's theatrics, right? A good debater is able to make themselves come across more confident and basically destroy the opposite argument. Like, it's just rhetorical talent, exactly. And they both have it. We've seen it before. Ben Shapiro was asked about the Great March of Return. He had no idea what the fuck it was. Obviously, college students are not very good at debating, but they can have information that the other person doesn't have. So when he was hit with that, he very quickly parried, right? The problem here is that I think a lot of people mistake being a good debater with having the correct takes. You can have piffy, quick retorts and really good talking points that make you come across like you're in the right. You can trip up your opponent. You know what I mean? Hit those iframes, right? Yeah. I'm glad D-Money is finally here so we can explain things correctly. Yes. Oh my God, run the ad during his opening. Dog shit. Destiny fans, once again, proving to just not be normal at all. Like, just can't hold it in at all, okay?
And that government can and should be big.
Not necessarily. I noticed that when liberals talk about government, or especially taxes, it seems like they talk about it for taxes' sake or bigness sake. So people talk about taxes sometimes as like a punishment, like tax the rich. I think taxing the rich is fine insofar as it funds the programs that we want to fund. But Democrats have a really big problem demonizing success or wealth.
Why do you even give Ben Genesito as much time of day as you do? Because he is one of the most popular right-wing commentators out there, and his platform and his ideas are identical to many people that I despise. It's the same. Well, it's in some ways similar to why Destiny talks about me all the time, because regardless of the fact that Destiny tried to present himself as like a progressive or whatever, he fucking despises that shit. So that way he can just regularly fucking talk about like whatever I'm presenting and, well, not really tackle the issue head on, but instead talk about how I'm bad off of like clickbaited, clip chipped compilation videos. And that way he doesn't have to undermine the idea. He can simply undermine the person, and therefore it's like you destroyed the idea as well. Anyway, let's keep going.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to be wealthy, to be a billionaire or whatever, as long as we're funding what we need to fund.
Ben, what do you think it means to be a conservative? What's the philosophy that underlies your political view?
So first of all, I'm glad that Destiny, you're already coming out as a Republican. That's exciting. I mean, we hold a lot in common in terms of, the basic idea that people ought to have as much opportunity as possible, and also insofar as the government should do the minimum amount necessary to interfere in people's lives in order to pursue certain functions, particularly at
Okay, how was that any different than what he said? Okay, you guys are in agreement then. Kiss and make up. Like, what do you mean?
the local level. So a lot of governmental discussions on a pragmatic level end up being discussions about where government ought to be involved, but also at what level government ought to be involved. And I have an incredibly subsidiary view of government. I think that local governments, because you have higher levels of homogeneity and consent, are capable of doing more things.
Homogeneity at the local level. That's why. Yeah. That's why it works. That's a fucking straight up dog whistle, by the way. Oh, yeah. Homogeneity is the reason why local government is more effective. And not because, like, you get to see immediate, tangible impacts of, like, your own election and your own outcomes. You vote for someone at the local level, you have more of a connection with them because they're not like 11 steps removed from you with like 1,000 different lobbyists that have that person's ear. Okay, that's the reason. It has nothing to do with homogeneity. So dumb.
And as you abstract up the chain, it becomes more and more impractical and more divisive to do more things. In my view, government is basically there to preserve certain key liberties.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. It's a dog whistle, and it's laying the foundation against Nordic social democracies working as a counter. Even though the reason why those Nordic social democracies work is not because of homogeneity at all.
Those key liberties pre-exist the government insofar as they are more important than what priorities the government has. The job of government is to maintain, for example, national defense, protection of property rights, protection of religious freedom. Right? These are
Yeah. You hate big government except for when women want to get abortions, in which case, then you want the biggest of government. Got it.
These are the key focuses of government as generally expressed in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. And I agree with the general philosophy of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Now, that doesn't mean, by the way, that you can't do more on a governmental level, again, as you get closer to the ground, which, by the way, is also embedded in the Constitution. People forget the Constitution was originally applied to the federal government, not to local and state governments. But if I were going to define conservatism, it would actually be a little broader than that, because I think to understand how people interact with government, you have to go to kind of core values. And so for me, there are a couple of premises. One, human beings have a nature. That nature is neither good nor bad. We have aspects of goodness and we have aspects of badness. Human beings are sinful. We have temptations. And what that means is that we have to be careful not to incentivize the bad, and that we should incentivize the good. Human beings do have agency and are capable of making decisions in the vast majority of circumstances. And it is better for society if we act as though they do. Second, the basic idea of human nature, there is an idea, in my view, that all human beings have equal value before the law. Yeah, I'm a religious person, so I'd say equal value before God, but I think that's also sort of a key tenet of Western civilization, being non-religious.
Oh my God. It is insufferable. Oh my God. Like, they both have the same exact argument, except for like a bunch of social conservatism and God shit that he's adding on. Jesus Christ, it's insufferable.
Or religious.
Okay, I'm skipping
that does
some
not
of it.
necessarily mean that every person is equally equipped to do everything equally well. And so it is not the job of government to
It's like, yeah.
just is something that. So those are a few key tenets, and that tends to materialize in a variety of ways. The easiest way to sum that up would the traditional kind of three legs of the conservative stool, although now obviously there's a very fragmented conservative movement in the United States, would be
You just said two neoliberals, one Reaganite, one Bill Clintonite. and you're unironically not wrong. So I guess in a way, this is basically the left-right spectrum of like permissible ideas in the American election cycles year over year. So you're not wrong. It is neoliberalism with like marginal differences. One side is like a little bit more socially conservative than the other side. The other side is more socially progressive than the other side, but will like oftentimes concede and cede ground to the social conservatism if they feel as though that social conservatism will help them basically preserve the supposed free market or market competition that they claim to care about.
A socially conservative view in which family is the chief institution of society, like the little platoons of society, as Edmund Burke suggested, in which free market and property rights are extraordinarily valuable and necessary, because every individual has the ability to be creative with their property and
Are
to
you going to engage with what he's saying or dismiss it with no rationale? What do you want me to engage with? Like, what can I engage with? He just said he wants little government, and he wants to incentivize good things and not incentivize bad things. Okay, I don't know what he thinks is good and bad. Well, I do know, but it's very different than what I think is good and bad, right? So when he leaves it like that, okay, that is not an idea that is like fun to engage with at all. It's just a stupid fucking argument. You just want me to expose the hypocrisy in his rhetoric, and sure, I will do that for you, okay? He claims he wants small government, but he also wants to stop women from being able to get fucking abortions. There you go. Inherent hypocrisy right there. Just because he turned around and said that I actually also, I don't know, believe in God and you know, the godly way of doing things, and the government should preserve the godly way of doing things, doesn't change the reality. That's inherently hypocritical for him to fucking say this shit. Okay? But thank you. I do love when Ben Shapiro fans come in here and try to tell me to like engage with his ideas. I would love to debate Ben Shapiro. He has chosen not to debate me, but to debate the likes of Anna Kasparian and now Destiny as well.
freely alienate that property. And finally, I tend toward a hawkish foreign policy that suggests that the world is not filled with wonderful people who all agree with us and think like us. And those people will pursue adversarial interests if we do not protect our own interests.
Can I ask a
And that way he can just like have a hawkish military as well. He can have like a hawkish foreign policy take, despite the idea that he's like some kind of libertarian.
question on that? I'm so
Yeah,
curious.
sure.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I'm excited for this conversation because I consider you to be really intelligent. But I feel like sometimes there are ways that conservatives talk about certain issues that seem to defy logic and reason, I guess. So here, and I'm sure you feel the same way about well, I feel the same way about progressives, but even some liberals for sure. Before I ask this question, it's going to relate to education. We can agree, broadly speaking, that statistics are real and that not everybody could do everything.
Dude, I'm gonna keep it a $1.50. I feel like this is Destiny's way of trying to like bring in more right wingers into his audience and like I guess change their mind by being very nice to Ben Shapiro. I like to look at who his enemies are and who his friends are, and on that, when I look at who he like hangs out with, who he considers to be his friends, and who he considers to be his like most mortal enemies. If you find yourself routinely and regularly shitting on like the most marginal of leftist positions that have no bearing on like American politics whatsoever, and you routinely find yourself like hyping up a right-wing figure like Ben Shapiro, saying he's actually smart. I know that that's probably a way to like disarm him in this debate, but if you find yourself agreeing more with right-wing perspectives, which do dominate American politics, and hyper focusing on left-wing perspectives as like the scariest thing, then you might not really be a liberal or a progressive. Okay?
So for a grounded example, my life was pretty bad. I got into streaming and I turned my life around, and that was really cool, but I can't expect everybody to do what I did, right? Like everybody being able to join the NBA or to be like a streamer.
Well, of
or-
course, everybody
yeah.
has different qualities, sure.
Okay. So I used to be a lot more libertarian when I was 20, 21. And one of the things
They are two grown men. They can disagree with each other without having to yell and throw insults. I learned a lot from this interview from both of them. Oh, God.
Things that dramatically changed kind of my view on government manipulation of things in the, I guess, in society came when it came time to deal with my son and the school that he went to. And one of the things that I noticed was when it came time to send my son to school, I could either do private education or I could do public. Personally, I did 12 years of Catholic private education. However, the public schools in Nebraska, depending on where you lived, were very, very, very good. And I opted for a certain district. I bought a house there. I moved there. And then my son was able to go to those schools. And he's been going through those schools. And the difference of availability of like technology, like these kids are taking home iPads in like first grade. They've got like huge computer labs and everything. Do you think that there is some type of, I don't want to say injustice or unfairness, because I'm not even looking at it that way, just pragmatically, that there might be children that are in certain schools that if they just had better funding or more access to technologies or things available to them, that those kids would become more productive members of society, that with like a little bit of a help, they could actually achieve more and do better for all of society?
So I think that on the list of priorities, when you
Ben Shapiro is going to deflect away. Either go school choice here, or he's going to say that it's like family values. Okay. He could do both, honestly. But regardless, Destiny's argument here is good. It's solid. It's not just about obviously iPads and shit. There's a lot more to it, and I'm sure he will get to it. But having said that, ultimately, this conversation between these two people will not go anywhere productive unless it goes back to, I guess, how to manage taxes.
comes to education, the availability of technology is actually fairly low on the list of priorities.
Sure. The
Meaning
two
that
things I've heard are food availability and I think air conditioning, I think are the two biggest ones that I hear, but sure.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing in terms of education itself, not just the physical facilities that we're talking about, would actually be two-parent family households.
Sure.
Okay. The way to respond to this is quite simple. Okay? Of course he's going to say that because he has nothing else. He's a fucking idiot. The way to respond to this is super simple. When you look at divorce rates or when you look at two-parent household rates across the board in other countries, obviously there's other externalities that are that play a role in this, like the carceral state. Ben Shapiro will try to, of course, bring it back to like culture, which is a substitute for race in this conversation, right? But when he says, "Oh, it's the parents," it's like that's the real issue with education. The question should be, okay, like divorce rates are increasing all across the world. Why is it that educational outcomes in other countries where they have a better, more efficient public education focused structure, regardless of the divorce rates going in either direction, why do they still yield better outcomes than the United States of America? That's the question. That's the counter to this question, rather. Anything else, and if you concede, if you say something like, okay, two-parent households, that's important, the moment that you cede territory in this argument to that take, you've completely moved beyond. He has very successfully taken the conversation and led the narrative to this absolute nonsensical position.
Communities that have fathers in them is actually the number one decisive, according to Roland Fryer and many studies done on this particular topic. And
yeah, by the way, the two-party household concept is directly a consequence of material wealth. Okay, two-parent households yield better outcomes for the child, not because of some holistic, spiritual, religious reason, but because two parents imply that you have more spare time to take care of the child and you have more disposable income to ensure that the child has the child doesn't have to work, for example. It's dual income. That's what matters. Dual income and also more free time. That's what matters. And that is how you arrive at I guess the healthier, um, I don't know, healthier, smarter, better educated uh, kids. As a child of one parent household, this shit's always so pitiful. Blaming all society's problems on broken families negates factors that tend to break those families up. My high school homeroom teacher always dogged on broken families and is incredibly shitty punching down. Yeah, I'm not even talking about that. The other part of this conversation, of course, is that it's also a dog whistle for like a substitute for like black people too, even though, there's obviously a issue of like having children out of wedlock if you consider it to be an issue in American society across the board. But having said that, I think that the two parent thing is a post hoc rationalization rather than a real consistent way of solving a problem, right? A lot of those studies that Ben is talking about look at correlation and imply causation. That's the other side of this equation as well. The notion that like two parent households are actually, they yield like more successful children is a consequence of a shit ton of different external factors. But Ben lands on that conclusion and says, and that's the way to solve it. Yeah, people that come from two parent households that have more disposable income and more free time to take care of the child are often going to have other factors that play a role in the development of the child as well.
The idea that money alone, that investment of resources is the top priority in schooling is belied by the fact that LAUSD, which is where I went to school when I was younger, they pour an enormous amount of money into LAUSD. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars very often per student, and it does not result in better schooling outcomes. And so when you say, if we could give every kid an iPad, would you give every kid an iPad? The question is not, if I had a replicator machine from Star Trek, would I give everybody an enormous amount of stuff? Sure, I would. Every resource is finite, every resource is limited, and you have to prioritize what are the outcomes that you seek in terms of the means with which you are seeking them. And so, again, I think that the question is I quibble with the premise of the question, which is that, again, the chief injustice when it comes to education on the list of injustices is lack of availability to technology, or that it's a funding problem. I just don't think that's the case.
Sure. And I can half agree with you there, but I don't think any amount of changes in the schools will create two parent households. Right, we can't bring a.
I totally agree with you. So that's why I think that the fundamental educational problem is not, in fact, a schooling problem. I think that it preexists that.
Sure, but then I feel like this is kind of the conservative merry-go-round where it's like, what can we do to help with schools? So two of the things that I've seen, I think, that are usually brought up in research is one is air conditioning, that children in hotter environments just don't learn as well. And then the second one is access to food. So like kids that are given like a breakfast or a lunch that's provided at school, like increases educational outcomes. Now I agree that neither of these things might be determinative in like, 20% of kids were graduating, now 80% of kids are graduating, or these kids are all going, from with their GEDs into the workforce, and now these kids are all suddenly becoming engineers. But in terms of where we can help, do you think there should be like some minimum threshold or minimum baseline of like, at the very least,
the science behind that conclusion that parents stay together because of good material conditions is strong. Republicans clearly don't want to change material conditions. The only reason they bring the issue of two-parent households is literally just racism. That's it. Exactly. Racism, especially without like analyzing like different cultural differences even, but also claiming that there is no other reason as to why like black families are from broken households. Just a racist dog whistle.
every school should have a
I
non-leaky
sped it
gym.
up 125.
Or every school should have, if children can't afford lunch or breakfast, like some sort of food provided, or every school should have these like baseline things.
So again, I'm going to quibble with the premise of the question, because I think that when it comes to, for example, food insecurity, school food programs, again, you can always pour money into any program and at the margins create change. I mean, there's no doubt that pouring money onto anything will create change in a marginal way. The question is, how large is the margin and how big is the movement?
Yeah. There's a finite amount of resources, right, Ben? That's why you just can't give them money, because I'm just trying to make it efficient, is what Ben is saying. How is he trying to make it efficient? Let me tell you something, okay? Here's why right-wingers are such fabulists, okay? The notion that like Ben is this intellectual giant who's actually thinking critically on the matter is silly as fuck. From where I'm standing, from where I'm sitting and understanding what Ben Shapiro is saying, he is more insane than any anarchist I've ever met that thinks that we can kumbaya tickle party fucking, I don't know, criminals. Okay? Why? Because he thinks that we can somehow force people to be locked into fucking marriages in a way that, like, won't cause genuine chaos, like regress on social liberties in a way where the government, he wants small government, unless it's literally arresting what? Moms and dads that actually want to get a divorce? Like, how are you going to do that? It's such a fucking idiotic way to try and solve this problem instead of looking at other comparable OECD nations and seeing what they've done. If we tomorrow looked at the Finnish model and decided we're going to do the exact same thing, you would see educational outcomes that were better immediately. Okay? More funding for schools and a more even way of developing schools would abso-fucking-lutely fix like half the issues. And before you say Hassan is unfortunately the dumbest guy here this time, please just simply tell me why you think that is the case instead of just saying that and making yourself feel smart. Because that is what dumb guys do. I often find myself belittling people as well, but at least I back it up with why I'm belittling them. Okay?
Right. So the delta is what I'm looking at. And so I think that you're starting at a second order question, which is, what if we ignore what I would think are the big primary questions of education, namely family structure, value of education at home, how much you have parents who are capable or willing to help with homework, what are the incentive structures we can set up for a society that actually facilitate that, how local communities take ownership of their schools is a big one, right? All of these issues we're ignoring in favor of, say, air conditioning or lunch programs. And so in a vacuum, if you say air conditioning and lunch programs, sounds great in a vacuum. In terms of prioritization of values and cost structure, are those the things that I think are going to move the needle in a major way in terms of public policy?
By the way, this is precisely the reason why they're both on the same side of the coin, by the way. Like, that's why I said they're both neoliberals. Like, what is he saying? Like, we know what his, like, nefarious agenda is for Ben, like, behind his statement, right? He wants, like, a theocratic style government, right? An authoritarian theocracy that upholds the principles of Judeo-Christianity, right? That's what he wants. He'll try to mask it and be like, "Oh, I actually just mean like we'll incentivize good things and not the bad." But that's what he's saying. That's what he wants. But when he's arguing for that position, instead of just saying straight up, "I want Handmaid's Tale" or whatever, he's being like, "Oh, well, it's about efficiency. It's just like we only have a finite amount of resources. We can't give iPads to every children." And I'm simply talking about like what's the most efficient way of using the limited amount of government resources we have. And if you don't have like a stable approach to this subject, you're gonna lose out. This is why like a lot of neoliberals on the leftist side or the liberal side oftentimes fail to combat these talking points and end up agreeing with people like this.
I do not. And in fact, I think that many of them end up being disproportionate wastes of money. I mean, I've talked before pretty controversially about the fact that an enormous amount of school lunch programs are thrown out. Like an enormous amount of that food ends up in the garbage can. Is there a better...
Dude, that's crazy. Pointing to the waste in school lunch programs in a way to like try to undermine one of the most important social programs is insane. It's yet again another instance where it is perfectly valid for private corporations to dump metric tons of shit in an effort to ensure that they still have a steady flow of profits, even though we have created an abundance of food in this country. But when schools throw out a marginal percentage of the food that they get, oh my God, we have to use that as a cudgel, as a way to say, we got to throw this entire program away. That is psychotic. Okay? That is insane. We dump a shit ton more in the private sector, on the agricultural side, on all matter of like food development, selling, on the fucking retail side. That is so stupid. You would never make this argument for cutting waste if the government actually put together an initiative that said, hey, you can actually dump out the extra milk. in an effort to hit your, in an effort to ensure that there is like some level of scarcity, so that your price points are so that your price is adjusted, right? To maintain price stability, you're gonna have to limit supply a little bit, which means wasting a shit ton of food. If someone were to actually advocate for that, Ben would lose his fucking mind. He would be like, that's communism. That's communism. But the moment that like a school is dumping out a little bit of their program, of their food program, we're talking about children, for the record, children getting food. Sometimes the most nutritious meal that millions of children eat is at school. There's a reason why during COVID, when schools stopped, schools still maintained their lunch programs. That's because millions of families are food insecure and hyper reliant on their public school lunches to deliver the most nutritious meal of the day for a child. Ridiculous.
Better way to do that. If there is a better way to do it, then I'm perfectly willing to hear about that better way to do it. But it seems to me that one of the big flaws in the way that many people of the left approach government is, what if we hit every gnat with a hammer? And my question is, what if the gnat isn't even the problem? What if there's a much bigger substructure problem that needs to be solved in order to, if you're shifting deck chairs on the Titanic, sure, you can make the Titanic slightly more balanced because the deck chairs are slightly better oriented. But the real question is the water that's gaping into the Titanic, right?
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. But again, I feel like we're on the conservative merry-go-round then of never wanting to address
That's not a conservative merry-go-round. I can give you 10 ways.
Well, sure, but so like here would be the merry-go-round. I would say that like there's a minimum funding for schools that I think would help children. And then we go, well, the thing that would help them the most is two-parent households. And I go, okay, well, two-parent households actually aren't the problem. The issue is access to things like birth control, so that people don't have children early on. And it's like, but the issue isn't actually birth control. The issue is actually you need a certain amount of money to move out early and to get married and then to have a two-parent household. So it's actually like economic opportunity.
No,
well, it's not,
no, just two-parent households. That's
yeah,
it.
but like what are the precursors?
Don't fuck people before you.
No, just two-parent households. Okay, how do you do it then? The problem is you shouldn't actually ever ask him, like, how do you enforce that? Because then you're kind of conceding. You're giving him an opportunity to describe his like idiotic worldview. And Ben is a very skilled debater, and he will try to present his handmaiden tale as dystopia in like a relatively positive way.
You're married and have babies.
Sure.
Done.
That's great. We can say that and try to fight against, however many hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution, but people will have sex and people will make babies.
And then they used to get married. The vast majority of people in this country with kids used to be married.
Notice how we moved away from school funding, by the way, and now they're talking about something completely irrelevant to that. Okay? It's over. School funding, a point that Destiny made that he absolutely should have nailed Ben Shapiro on. They've moved on. He got trapped in his fucking rabbit hole. Now he's talking about the boundaries of family values and marriage. Why are we talking about marriage when the subject matter is supposed to be on education?
The vast majority of people with kids in this country
Sure.
now are not married increasingly.
Mm-hmm.
That is obviously a societal change. Something changed. It wasn't human evolution.
But a lot of those things in terms of resting on whether or not people get married have to do with financial decisions. Do you have the money?
People are worse off now.
I don't disagree with you, but you can't make it sound like the U.S. serves healthy food at schools because they simply don't. It's literal poison that looks like food. You want to know the fucking sad state of affairs, my friend? I know that. And yet that is still the most nutritious meal that a child has in millions of food insecure families. I know that. That's how bad the fucking situation is, dude. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you know what's better? Which is better, no food or shit food? I know that. I know that, like, in a lot of these places, guys, I've shit on Amy Klobuchar personally for getting funded by, I believe it was a tomato lobby, to make ketchup appear as a vegetable on school lunches, to make pizza, to get pizza to be considered a vegetable on school lunches because it has enough, like, tomato sauce on it. Okay? Not ketchup. It was pizza and ketchup. So I know how fucked up the process is. I'm simply telling you that even then, it is still more nutritious than nothing.
now than they were 50, 60 years ago when the marriage rates were higher.
People are delaying the start of their careers because education is going to be increasingly important.
So in other words, people are richer now and they have more education now, and yet they're having more babies out of wedlock now because they're richer and have more education.
I'm saying that one of the biggest indicators for whether or not somebody's willing to get married is how much money both people are making if they can move out of their household. People don't tend to want to get married at 22 when they've just finished college, when they don't have the money to move out and they can't afford a house.
Because we have changed the moral status of marriage in the culture, meaning that everyone, poor, rich, and in between, used to get married. That is, by the way, a huge percentage of marriages in the United States used to be what they would call shotgun marriages, meaning that somebody knocked.
Dude, none of that is good. None of that is good for the health of society. None of that is good for like what women want. And also, it has nothing to do with education. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Somebody up, and because they did not want the baby to be born outside of a two-parent household, they would then get married.
Do we think that shotgun marriages, though, are a way to bring back equilibrium to education?
Yes.
That if we,
Yes, absolutely. Yes, 100%.
Do we
a
think
child
that-
deserves a mother and a father?
Sure,
Because that
but-
is the basis for all of this, including education.
do we think that shotgun marriages are, well, let's say this. Do we think that that's a reasonable direction that society would ever take? Or is this like,
Yes, it was the reasonable direction for nearly all of modern history.
was, but history moves in one direction, right?
Why?
Because of time?
I mean, people don't think that's in what way is that?
And I don't think
It's like the point is it's completely lost. Like now they're talking about like the history of marriage in the United States of America. Ben is presenting shotgun marriages as a positive because like shotgun marriages used to happen. I suspect it's gonna be like shotgun marriages used to happen when someone knocked someone else up and they were forcibly married. And it's like, yeah. Huge percentage, by the way. Shotgun marriages used to be 27% of marriages in 1974 and 7% of marriages since 2000. Which, by the way, that doesn't mean the percentage of unmarried pregnant women who marry within 3 years of conception has fallen by half since the 1970s from 51% to 25%. The share of single pregnant women who cohabit by the time the child's birth rose from 8% in the 1970s to 28% today, while the share who married by the birth fell from 29 to 8. What does that mean? That means that a lot of people who have accidental pregnancies still usually are in the child's life. They just don't get shotgun married. Also, absolutely no one, I hope, would make an argument that the 1974 was a good fucking time. That 1974 was a good fucking time for women in general and in marriages. In the US, a shotgun wedding is when someone marries their favorite shotgun. Anyway, I got to point to something here. Not only is what he's saying wrong, right, as we found out, it has nothing to do with education. Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine a world where you're like, well, I have the perfect solution, okay? We're not funding the schools at all, but everyone's going to come from a two-parent household. Do you think that would fix the educational outcomes? Are you fucking stupid? What are you saying? Will it make the child's life and the child's development better? Maybe. A good counter to this would be to simply ask Ben Shapiro, okay, what did education look like in 1974 when there were shotgun marriages happening? Was it better? Were Americans more educated in 1974? Are they more educated now, Ben? When are they more educated? Dumbass. The fuck's wrong with you? This has nothing to do with education. Ask him that question, Destiny. What the fuck are you doing? Too busy agreeing with him for some weird reason. We're trying to catch him on a weird tangent.
think we've ever regressed social standards back to like, oh, well, let's go 100 years back and do things that, used to exist before.
It's weird. The entire left right now is arguing that we regress social standards by rejecting Roe versus Wade. So that's obviously not true.
Ah! Now he's saying Roe versus Wade. What the fuck? Ah! Ah! What does that have to do with education? What is going on? The left is trying to oh my god. He's so good at just like fucking saying incredibly annoying shit in the most smarmy way possible that like you have to respond to it. You have to respond to it because look, the reality is if I was sitting across from him and he said that shit, I would lose my mind too. he would 100% cause me to follow him down that rabbit hole if he just brought the dumbass fucking education point. Why? Because Destiny made a good point. Destiny had a strong point. He made the correct point about education. What did Ben Shapiro do as a more skilled debater? Take him on a fucking journey and slap him around on the boundaries of marriage. Gave him false talking points about like how shotgun marriages are good and also very commonplace when it's not the case. But you don't have that information to look up immediately in real time. So now you're fucking cooked. Okay. And then what is he talking about now? Roe v. Wade. These are all absolute fucking baits. Stay on message. Stay on fucking message.
The Roe versus Wade is not a social standard; it's a Supreme Court ruling. Number one. Number two, if you read the actual majority of opinion on Roe v. Wade, we can see that socially we actually never made huge progress on how society viewed abortion. This has always been an incredibly divisive thing, right? Even that was, I think, part of Alito's writing on it was that things like gay marriage, for instance, we've kind of moved past and it's not really as debated anymore. But abortion was never a settled topic, despite Roe v. Wade.
The notion of the arc of history.
I saw this part where he was saying like it's divisive. Abortion is divisive. It's not fucking divisive. It's not. It's not a divisive issue at all. Not ridiculous to say that it's divisive.
Moves in one direction is belied by nearly all of the 20th century.
What do we mean by that?
I mean,
in
the
terms
first
of
half
like
of the
women's
20th
rights,
century is
civil
filled with
rights,
barbarism, communism, Nazism, all of that was a regression from what was happening at, for example, the beginning of the 19th century and the 20th century.
Now we're talking about Nazism and communism being regressions. Oh my lord!
What way?
Nazism and communism weren't a regression from what was going on in 1905.
These are, in terms of like communism being a regression, for instance, I'm not a communist, but like the industrialization of the Soviet Union happened under a communist society. The industrialization,
murder of tens of millions of people.
Yeah, there's
I consider that a regression. A moral regression, which is what we.
Oh my god, dude, this is why you need to be a little bit more fucking educated. Okay, he's a fascist. Him bringing up Nazi Germany as a moral regression is an awesome point. What do you say in that situation? You turn around and go, yeah, that's exactly the kind of moral regression you're advocating for in the United States of America when you want to have these like insane regressions on culture and on civil society. And as far as the moral regression of the USSR, that is an absolutely psychopathic thing to fucking mention when you got someone like Lenin. And all of the many advancements that the USSR put forward in terms of educating women, some of which the impact you still see to this day in post-Soviet fucking nations, by the way, educating women, ensuring that women were in the fucking workplace. Like there are so many instances where the USSR was way above, way ahead of social progress than the United States of America or their Western counterparts. That's ridiculous. Okay? They're just fucking falling into the classic, like, USSR bad, Stalin killed 7 guerrillian people trap. Which, by the way, there were plenty of issues in the USSR. But you have to look at what the USSR did in comparison to what came before it. That's insane. That is still absolutely social progress in the USSR. Dumbest argument Ben Shapiro could have made in this circumstance. Okay? 1. The USSR, infinitely more socially progressive than Tsarist Russia. That's number 1, okay? Like, the quick question to Ben is, okay, you brought up the USSR. Do you think that, like, I don't know, Jewish people are better off in the USSR where there were certainly issues for Jewish people like doctor's plot or whatever, but, like, do you think that that was better than what came before it? Non-stop pogroms? Which one do you think was better? Why are you bringing up the USSR as a point of social regress while simultaneously talking about Nazi Germany as a point of social regress when your worldview aligns with Nazi Germany? Anyway. By the way, while I talked about all this shit, you know what we're not talking about? Motherfucking education! What happened? Where is education in this conversation? We just moved so far away. He brought up the right points. Ben couldn't argue against them, and he just fucking whipped them around like a bitch boy on so many different tangents. This is the problem with debates, chat. That if you are against a skilled orator, a skilled interlocutor, they can just make short work of you, even if they're in the wrong. Destiny's side on the education conversation was correct. But Ben is now bringing him down this like weird fucking ladder, step by step, and just slapping him around, and they're now agreeing with one another on like the USSR or whatever, some dumb shit. Also, Lex should have probably done a better job of moderating this debate. Let's be fucking real. That's crazy that they're on like 11 different tangents at this point. How are you not moderating? Ben is basically stating that women shouldn't be able to make decisions about their lives. A huge reason why the amount of women aren't forcing the shotgun marriages anymore. Women nowadays have more freedom to advocate for themselves, as that was seen as a taboo in the 70s. This can be shown by divorce rates. Yeah. Exactly.
We are talking about now moral regression. And you're suggesting that moral regression, I wouldn't term a return to traditional values in moral regression. You would. But your suggestion is that history only moves in one direction. And I'm suggesting that history does not only move in one direction. It tends to move actually back and forth.
Sure. I don't think that all of history moves in one direction. There are going to be wars. There are going to be times of peace. I think in general, we're more peaceful now than we have been in the past. But I think when we look at the way that people live their lives, I think that we tend to move in a certain direction socially. So when it comes to things like racism, or when it comes to things like slavery or women's rights, I think that there are two huge things that probably aren't.
Yeah, Destiny isn't even shistling properly. Didn't even mention how Hitler praised the U.S. in the early 20th century for their eugenics programs. Or the very obvious fucking take here is immediately turning around and being like, Ben, the social regress of Nazi Germany didn't just stop at the wholesale execution of Jews, okay? The social regress of Nazi Germany was actually identical values that you advocate for. Transphobia, okay? Stopping abortions, criminalizing abortions. Like, these are fundamental principles to make sure that the folk in Germany were able to consistently increase their population size. The idea that Ben is so far removed from Nazi Germany is so ridiculous. You hate unions, right? You hate communists and socialists. You want to criminalize abortion. It's so funny when these guys go, actually, the Nazis actually wanted abortions. Like, it's like, no, they didn't. Not for white people. It was criminal for white people. The fuck are you talking about?
Changing in the US, and one is access to contraception, and one is women working jobs. I think that these two things are probably huge things that are moving us off of shotgun marriages or getting married very early on. And I don't see those. Do you think that those two things are going to change fundamentally?
First of all, what the data tend to show is that actually more highly educated people, as you were saying, tend to get married more. So if the idea is that women getting an education somehow throws them off marriage, it's the opposite. Usually
but those women
aren't
not
educated.
Getting, but those women aren't getting shotgun marriages. Those women aren't having children.
Yeah, but now you're shifting the topic. My topic was how to get more people married. And what I'm and then you suggested that higher levels of education are delaying marriage and making it less probable. And what I'm telling you, because this is what the data suggests, is that actually as you raise up the educational ladder, people tend to be married more than they are lower down on the educational ladder. If you're a high school graduate, you're less likely to be married than if you're a postdoc.
I agree with you, but that's because one of the biggest precursors to getting married is having like a level of economic stability. So as people get more educated, they obtain this economic stability, and then they're in a more comfortable position to explore more serious relationships.
There's another confound there. I mean, the confound is that people in stable marriages tend to be the children of stable marriages. And there's only one way to break that cycle, which is to create a stable marriage. And that is something that is in everyone's hands. Again, this notion that it is somehow an unbreakable, unshatterable barrier to get.
Yeah, I love that his argument is the realistic one, which is somehow making sure that we just, get married more and stay in marriages. That's nice, man. That's the way to solve education for sure. Just cut school funding entirely and force people to stay in marriages, and boom, problem solved. That's how they do it in Sweden, where they did try to privatize education, found out that it actually led to tremendously bad results, immediately stopped the program, dead in its fucking tracks. So odd that all of the comparable OECD nations have significantly better educational outcomes, despite the fact that, many of them don't even allow for private education or don't have any of this like charter school bullshit. And there is even funding and better labor protections for teachers. Not true. We have private schools. No, in Sweden, they tried to do a similar program to the Democrats in the 90s in the United States of America, revert some of the funding from public education and public institutions to private institutions in Sweden. They quickly dropped the program. They still have private schools in Sweden, but it's, of course, going to always happen because you have neoliberal capitalists that are advocating for it. But they very quickly changed, if I recall correctly, the charter process that they had. The public to private substitution program that they had. Yes, there's a big difference between private schools and charter schools. Probably a late point, but what about charter schools? Charter schools are dog shit. Charter schools are awful. It's just a way to undermine teachers' unions. They are unaccountable. They're unaccountable to the same regulatory body. They take away funds from public education. It's really awful. And the Democratic Party absolutely played a role in pushing for charter schools and still does to a certain degree. Yeah, charter schools get worse outcomes per dollar. Also, charter schools, because they're unaccountable and not really regulated by local governments, sometimes they just straight up end. Like they just close up. They just close down. Donda Academy style.
Get married and have kids. I don't understand where this is coming from. Why is that such a challenge?
I
It's
don't
not a
think it's
challenge.
unbreakable or unshatterable. The initial point was for school, if we can provide a minimum level of educational stuff for children, that'd probably be good. But when we retreat back to, well, it has to be the families that are fixed first, fixing families is a multivariate problem that has so many different.
I am fine within my local community. We all vote. Again, I've suggested that there's a difference between local community and federal. I'm fine with my local community voting for school lunches or air conditioning or whatever it is that we all agree to do, because the more local you get, the more homogeneity you get in terms of interest, and the more interest you have in your neighbors. All that.
This is not what I'm talking about at all. Sweden's school minister declares free school system a failure. Lotta Edholm aims to limit the profit-making ability of free scholar in her plans for education reform. Pledging the biggest shakeup in 30 years, calling the question a model in which profit-making companies run state education. This is a relatively new version of what I'm talking about. This happened before. This is the second. I guess this is like they are now talking about it again. But this happened a couple years past, a couple years prior as well, when they first brought it up. Yeah, incentivizing profit in schooling is a terrible idea. Biden lost Democratic New Hampshire presidential primary to fill in the blank. How damned embarrassing. I don't believe that. It's on Newsmax, dog. Come on. I mean, not that it matters.
That's fine. I'm part of a very, very solid community. In our community, we give to each other. We have minimum standards of helping one another. All that's wonderful. When it comes to the actual problem of education, what I object to in the political sphere, and this happens all the time, is everybody is arguing on top of the iceberg about how we can move the needle 0.5 percentage points, as opposed to the entire iceberg melting beneath them. And we just ignore that. And we pretend that that's just,
Yeah, the entire iceberg melting beneath the education is the education problem is 2-parent households.
sort of the natural consequence of thing. The arc of history suggests that people are never going to get married again. Well, I mean, actually, what the arc of history suggests, realistically speaking, is that the people who are not getting married are not going to be having kids. And what it also suggests, the people who are married are going to be having kids. And so the demographic profile, actually, over time, is rather going to shift toward people who are having lots and lots of kids. I'm married. I have 4 kids. Everyone in my community is married. It's like minimum buy-in in my community is 4 kids. Okay, and so what's happening actually in terms of demographics is that the people who are more religious and getting married are having more kids. And so if you're talking about the arc of history shifting toward marriage, I would suggest that actually demographically over time, long periods of time, not over one generation, over long periods of time, the only cure for low birth rate is going to be the people who get married and have lots of kids.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with any of that, but I'm just saying that, again, on the...
Why? Why don't you disagree with any of that? The fuck's he talking about? Who gives a shit about the arc of history as it pertains to fucking marriages and two-parent households? I'm losing my mind. And having more kids. Bro, this is about education, dude. What is going on? You let him fucking dominate the conversation for the entire process when you are correct. You are on the right side of the argument. This is what I mean. Ben knows Destiny's on the right side of this argument. Okay. And it took him literally nothing, absolutely nothing to just like move the conversation and dance around the issue and shift his focus to like the arc of justice and social progress for like fucking 20 minutes. That's crazy.
I know you're upset when I bring up the term merry-go-round. I think that there are good conversations to be had about people getting married because stable families produce stable children that are less likely to commit crime, that are more likely to go to school.
Isn't Ben technically on the right side? Fuck no, Ben's not on the right side. What the fuck are you talking about? They're both like, one is sometimes center left, other times really far right, depending on what fucking issue you're talking about. This one is completely far right on everything, okay?
More likely productive members of society, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to disagree with you on any of that. All of that is true. It's just frustrating that sometimes when you bring up any problem, all of it will circle back to other things that makes it seem like we can't make any progress in any area.
Destiny's on the left? No, he's not. He's not. Like, come on.
Like fixing
In what
something.
way?
that's
I mean, I
fundamental.
literally just told you that on the local level, I'm fine for people voting for.
Yeah, but so
conditioning.
for instance, on the local level, so for school funding is done, I think, generally per district. So what do you do when you have poor districts that can't afford air conditioner for their schools?
I mean, the idea there would be that presumably if the society, meaning the state,
Mhm.
and I generally don't mean the federal state, I mean
Sure.
like the state of California, for
Mhm.
example, decides that everybody ought to have air conditioning, people will vote for air conditioning, and that's perfectly legal. And I don't think there's anything morally objectionable about that per se.
Cool.
I also don't think that that's going to heal anything remotely like the central problem.
Sure,
And I
I
think that
agree.
what tends to happen in terms of government is people love arguing about the problems that can be solved by opening a wallet, and nobody likes to solve a problem by, closing their sex life to one person, for example,
Mhm.
or having kids within a stable religious community, like the things that actually build society. I'm fine with arguing about each of these policies, and
Sure.
whether we apply them or not is a matter generally of pragmatism, not morality. It's a matter of incentive structures, not per se morality,
Mhm.
because incentive structures do have moral underpinnings. There's such a thing as, for example, if you're going to use a welfare program, you have to decide how effective it is, to what crowd it applies, where the cutoffs are. Does it disincentivize work? Does it not?
Yeah.
All of these are
I agree.
pragmatic concerns.
Mhm.
But on a moral level, the generalized objection that I have to people on the left side of the aisle is that they like to focus in these conversations. Very often it feels as though it's a conversation with people who are drunk searching under the lamp for their keys. The problems they want to look.
Yeah, now they're gonna get on a collective fuckfest of like dunking on this imaginary liberal, which they will of course cast as like, I assume, the progressive side of this conversation, as pie in the sky idealists who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and then circle jerk on how smart and intelligent their solutions are. When Ben's fucking solution is psychotic, Destiny at least like brought up good points and completely fucking dropped them.
At are the problems that are solvable by government,
Mhm.
and then all the problems they don't want to look at, which are the actual giant monsters lurking in the dark and not particularly solvable by government, are the ones they want to ignore and assume are just the natural state of things. And I don't think
Yeah.
that's correct at all.
And I 1,000,000,000% agree. But then obviously my criticism for the conservative side is the exact opposite, where there are parts where government could remedy some issues. For instance, children having sex with each other and producing other children out of wedlock. Like sometimes having after school programs is nice to prevent that. Like I didn't have time for these things when I was in school. I was doing football practice. I was doing cross country practice. I went in early for a band. I agree with you that sometimes people only focus on one end of the problem. I hate to be that guy, but as somebody that have you ever watched The Wire?
Sure.
I'm not going to cite The Wire as real life example, but like obviously there's only so much you can do in a school when the children coming in are so beyond destroyed because of the family life and everything prior to them even getting to school that day. So I agree. Government is not like the solution to broken families. That would never be the case.
And it's actually not the solution to education, depending on the kind of solutions that you're talking about. Some solutions, yes. Some
Mhm.
solutions, no.
Yeah.
So
The only thing I'm looking at is, as I said earlier, just
Like
like
what?
these minimum threshold
What?
things. Where,
What are the solutions of the government? What is a government intervention that Ben thinks is appropriate? Stop agreeing with him. What the fuck? Stop agreeing with him. What are the solutions? He's just fucking dude. He just keeps saying, oh, some yes, some no. You're not pinning him down at all. If this was, okay, if Destiny was sitting across from some like 18-year-old queer teenager furry who's like talking about revolution now on Twitter, okay, he would be literally doing everything in his might while simultaneously holding back slurs to pin this person down on their fucking positions. But when it's actually big dick daddy Shapiro, he can't just turn around and be like, let's explore the logical boundaries of your worldview. What the fuck are you doing? You got all the smoke for some random fucking furry person from your Discord that you pulled out, but you don't got shit for Ben Shapiro? This motherfucker's in charge of the Daily Wire. I'm losing it a little bit. Come on, dude. Have you considered that Destiny may want a contract with the Daily Wire? That's crazy. Pin him down. Ask him a fucking question. I've debated this dude many times in the past, okay? He's the best at disingenuously framing his interlocutor's argument to like try and lock them into this like logical conundrum. But when it comes to Ben, he's just not even remotely touching it. It blows my